The East Peak Leader area covers North Sheffield, Penistone and surrounding villages, Kirkburton and Denby Dale. Although the area is now largely rural, it was historically associated with a diverse range of different industries and still retains a rich heritage of buildings, monuments, below-ground archaeology and landscapes formed by industrial processes, including coal and mineral extraction, iron and steel production, glass and textiles. The Industrial Heritage Support Programme was developed as a partnership between English Heritage and the East Peak Leader Group, the East Peak Innovation Partnership, to work with local communities and volunteer groups to support volunteers undertaking a range of activities to research, celebrate and protect industrial heritage in their local areas. The programme started in December 2010 and finished in November 2013. One of the biggest successes has been the Small Grants Scheme, which has funded 24 community projects, along with a range of other events, workshops and community activities. The film project was commissioned at the start of 2012 to record some of the funded projects. This film gives an overview of those activities, showing some of the inspiring work that has been enabled by the programme. A new interpretation board, funded by the support programme, was unveiled at Ladycroft Meadow, St Mary's Lane, Ecclesfield. The board was produced as part of an industrial heritage interpretation project by the Ecclesfield Conservation Group. The group worked with local historians Melvin and Joan Jones to research the industrial heritage of Ecclesfield and produce the new board and accompanying leaflet. Together these tell the story of important local industries including nail making, file cutting and gimlet, auger and brace bit making. The unveiling ceremony was followed by a celebration and industrial history exhibition in St Mary's Church. The East Peak Industrial Heritage Support Programme helped to support a community project commemorating the 150th anniversary of a mining accident at the former Westwood Colliery in High Green. The project was delivered by a coalition of community groups from the local area, including the Six Jolly Miners Sword Team, High Green History Group, High Green in Bloom, High Green Miners Welfare and High Green Primary School, with support from the Sheffield City Council Northern Assembly and Ecclesfield Parish Council. The end of the project was marked by the Six Jolly Miners Memorial event at the High Green Miners Welfare Hall and the unveiling of a commemorative plaque. A floral tribute was created by the High Green in Bloom group outside the Miners Welfare Hall, including 6 roses, one for each miner who lost their life. The final rose was planted by the Lord Mayor of Sheffield, Sylvia Dunkley. The Industrial Heritage Support Programme funded a public event to present the results of a survey of the Silkstone Wagonway, which was also funded by the programme. The survey was carried out by Ark Heritage, working in collaboration with the Roggins Local History Group. The aim of the survey was to help the group to record all of the remaining features associated with the wagonway, in order to help them to monitor its condition and to help with future management. The survey recorded a total of 951 features, including sleeper stones, bridges, embankments, furnaces, coal extraction pits, lime kilns and an inclined plane. The survey launch was held at the Pothouse Hamlet in Silkstone, which is on the route of the wagonway. The programme funded another public event to present the results of a survey of Rockley Furnace and Engine House, which was also funded by the programme. The survey was carried out by Ark Heritage, working in collaboration with volunteers from the South Yorkshire Industrial History Society, who own the site. The aim of the survey was to support the society in conserving the site, to assess the current condition of the monuments and associated earthworks, and to develop new interpretation materials. The survey launch was held at Wentworth Castle, which has historic links to the Rockley site. The surviving furnace at Rockley was built in around 1704 by Lewis Westcombe, after his marriage to Catherine Rockley. It was redeveloped in the 1720s by Sheffield ironmakers William Cotton and Samuel Shaw, who built the charging ramp next to the furnace to make loading easier and improved the water supply to the site. The furnace was converted to coke in the 1790s, but fell out of use after 1799. Rockley Engine House was built in 1813 by Darwin and Co. of Elsica Ironworks, who were mining ironstone at the site. It housed a large Newcomen-type steam engine, used for pumping water out of the mine. The engine was moved to Chapeltown in 1827 after the company was declared bankrupt. The Sheffield Trades Historical Society bought the site in 1957, and the furnace was excavated by David Crossley between 1978 and 1982. The survey included the use of digital scanning, and since the completion of the survey, the scan data has been used to create 3D reconstructions of the furnace and engine house. Shepley Spring Festival hosted the final performance of the East Peak Industrial Folk Traditions Schools project, which was funded by the support programme and run in collaboration with the Yorkshire Garland. Tutors Robin Garside, Bryony Griffith and John Hislop worked with primary schools in Hoyland Swain, Outybridge and Skelmanthorpe. The pupils visited local heritage sites, including the Hoyland Swain Nail Forge and the Skelmanthorpe Textile Heritage Museum, to explore what life would have been like for families involved in local domestic industries, including nail making, ganister mining, cutlery making and handloom weaving. The children learnt about the traditions and songs relating to the different industries and then wrote a series of new songs, plays and dances. All three groups then came together for a joint public performance on the Sunday afternoon at the Shepley Spring Festival. Folk traditions are an important part of local industrial heritage. Local songs and poems can tell us about important industrial events and the daily working conditions associated with local industries. In the East Peak, longsword and clog dancing were also an important part of life in many mining and textile villages. The Industrial Folk Arts project set out to celebrate these traditions, as well as creating new songs, plays and dances to tell the industrial stories of the East Peak. The support programme funded a public exhibition at the Hub in Kirkburton. This was part of a project to research the industrial stories of Kirkburton Village and to raise awareness of the village and its history. The project included contributions from local businesses and community groups and research by volunteers from a new local history group based at the Hub. An oral history training day was also held for project volunteers and was delivered by the Oral History Society. The support programme funded an industrial heritage summer school based in Grenoside. The summer school was delivered by the Council for British Archaeology in collaboration with the Grenoside Conservation Group and the Grenoside Local History Society, and comprised 4 half-day sessions with a variety of different tutors and speakers. The workshops provided advice and support for local groups involved in recording and protecting local industrial heritage. Over the 4 sessions, heritage experts from English Heritage, Sheffield City Council, the South Yorkshire Archaeology Service and the Council for British Archaeology covered a range of conservation issues, including listed building designation, local lists, funding opportunities and research. The workshops also included visits to local heritage sites, including the Grenoside Reading Room and the Topside Crucible Furnace, which has recently been listed by English Heritage because of its historical significance. The support programme funded the ISIL Interest project at Paces campus in High Green. The project was developed and managed by Westwood Training with support from the Coterie Gallery. 10 Discover and Learn industrial heritage themed art workshops were delivered over 5 days in July and August for children of different ages. The workshops helped the children to discover the industrial heritage of their local area, in particular the history of Newton Chambers, who built the vast Thorncliffe Ironworks which formerly occupied the site next to the campus. The end of the project was marked by a month-long exhibition at the Coterie Gallery, which included displays of historic photographs and objects and the children's artwork. The Newton Chambers Company was established in the 1790s when George Newton and Thomas Chamber signed a lease to mine coal and ironstone in the Thorncliffe Valley. During the later 19th century, along with their iron and coke production, the company also started manufacturing chemicals. In the 1890s they developed ISIL disinfectant, which quickly became a household name and possibly their most famous product. The support programme funded the Industrial Treescapes project, run by the South Yorkshire Biodiversity Research Group. The project worked with local volunteers to explore the industrial uses of historic woodlands in the East Peak. This project was so successful that in autumn 2012, the programme funded a follow-up project working with volunteers in North Sheffield and Denby Dale. The project delivered survey training for volunteers as well as practical workshops on uncovering the industrial history of woodlands through documentary and archive research. The workshops were delivered by Professors Melvin Jones and Ian Rotherham, in collaboration with professional archaeologists Dr Paul Ardron, Richard Jackson and Mike McCoy. The work carried out by the 2 Industrial Treescapes projects has highlighted a surprising number of woodlands in the East Peak were formerly working woodlands, providing timber, charcoal, bark, brash, potash and a whole range of other products needed by local industries. The volunteers recorded a number of previously unknown features, including possible charcoal platforms and historic coppices, which add to our knowledge of these important yet often overlooked industrial landscapes. As a result of the Westwood Memorial Project, a new junior longsword team was established at High Green Primary School, supported by members of the 6 Jolly Miners dance team. The junior team have performed at a number of events across the East Peak and took part in the Second Industrial Folk Traditions Schools project. Traditional sword dancing has close links with mining traditions. Longsword is the older style compared to other styles such as rupper dancing, and is generally associated with the mining villages of the Yorkshire coalfields. Longsword dancers use long, rigid metal or wooden swords. Within mining communities, free time was precious, and activities like dancing were taken very seriously. Teams often performed for donations, and dancing often became an important source of income during lean times. Ashley Powell and John Bowden from the 6 Jolly Miners dance team tell us more.
The Westwood project helped us to raise awareness of the rich industrial heritage of the area. It's also acted as a springboard for other projects, with plans for a phase 2 which will involve the placing of interpretation boards, leaflets, heritage walks, etc., in which we hope EPIP will also be involved. The project has already spawned a local history umbrella project, Ecclesfield Parish History, which is being formed to bring together the various local history groups with an online presence and a series of local events to raise awareness of local heritage. It's also spawned the creation of a brand new youth and sword dancing team, the High Green Sword Dancers, who've already danced at events and forged links with the local folk scene. And they'll accompany the Grenoside Sword Dancers on one of their major annual events, the Traipse, in January. And we've worked with High Green Primary School in helping to digitise their logbooks, which go back to the 1860s. And next year they'll be commemorating the anniversary of the school when it'll be 170 years old.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I think we've been pleasantly surprised by the ways in which this has acted as a springboard for linked activities. For example, we've done a bit of research into the 6 miners who were killed and also the 2 who survived the explosion. And we've done quite a lot of research into the family histories, and we're trying, Julie, our archivist, Ashley's sister, is actually building up family trees of those people, and that's spurred a lot of interest in the area for people who want to find out about their family history, which of course is a very growing thing at the moment. A lot of people are becoming more and more interested in researching their history, and if you've got this hook that you can link into, then it's much easier than just starting blindly with your own family. So we've already had an exhibition day where people were invited to come and look up their own families or to look at the history of the area. So it has actually given us a lot of impetus, and it's raised a lot of interest in the area and in the school particularly, because their input was wonderful into the commemorative event. And as a spring off for that, I'm going in and teaching them 2 of the local carols, the Sheffield carols, which they're going to perform later in December. And I think there's been a lot of interest then in the history of the school and the area, because of course a lot of primary schools do look at the Victorian era, but sometimes it's a bit abstract. They're learning about it because it's a period of history, whereas here they can actually say this is something that happened literally just down the road. And one of the 2 carols that they're learning is Wild Shepherds to the tune of Old Foster, which was written by John Foster, who lived literally 100 yards up the road in High Green. So again, it's a link where they can say this isn't just a carol that people sing, but I can see why this is relevant to us and to our school.
After the success of their first board, the Ecclesfield Conservation and Local History Group were given a second grant to create 2 additional boards and accompanying leaflets about the working past of Ecclesfield Village. These were written by Melvin and Joan Jones with contributions from local people and businesses, and were unveiled in a public ceremony. The event included a local history display and buffet in St Mary's Church, Ecclesfield. During the Ecclesfield Interpretation Project, a number of important historic documents were discovered which give a fascinating insight into some of the village's former industries. These included ledgers from the last gimlet and auger maker in the village, donated to the conservation group by members of the Ridge family, and the diary of a Mr John Lee, documenting his work at Newton Chambers, Thorncliffe and Chapeltown Ironworks between 1882 and 1905. The Industrial Heritage Programme provided additional funding for these and a number of historic photographs from the Chapeltown and High Green Archive to be digitised. These have since been uploaded to the Ecclesfield Conservation and History Group's website. The support programme funded an archaeological survey of the site of the former Wortley Tin Mill. The work was carried out on behalf of Hunshelf Parish Council to support their plans for a community-based project at the site. The work was carried out with the permission of the Warncliffe Estates, who own the site and surrounding woodland. The survey was carried out by Wessex Archaeology, who worked with local volunteers to map and interpret the visible remains of the former rolling mill complex. Barry Tiley from Hunshelf Parish Council explains more.
I've always been interested in this site because it's always been a bit of a mystery. It's got fairly extensive ruins, as you can see, but not much is known about it. Although it's called a tin mill in Tin Mill Wood, the perceived wisdom was that it didn't actually make tin products. So the purpose of this survey is to try and establish if it was really a tin mill. I became interested when I read the report of a Swedish industrialist who came around this site in 1754, and he described the process exactly of the mill making tin products, whereas previously it thought it just made flat, soft iron sheet, which is a Yorkshire term for tin. So we became interested in this, and this project is to determine whether it's worth doing a fuller scale survey with trial pits and digging, and particularly to find components and artefacts that are characteristic of tin products. We believe that the site was originally a bloomery making iron blooms from 1600 to about 1680. And then it became a slitting mill, and then it was rebuilt, we think, as a tin mill in 1754. Now in that case it would certainly be the most northerly tin mill in England, and it might even be the first tin mill in England, which makes it quite important. After the evidence of the rebuilding in 1744, we have no documents at all relating to the site until about 1870, when we know the Science Museum wanted to purchase the machinery, presumably because it was important and interesting. But unfortunately, the records show the machinery had gone by then as scrap. We do know there were two rows of cottages on the site, and one of the rows was occupied till about the 1970s. And I've been talking to some relatives of people that live there, and that's been quite interesting. But they've no pictures or photographs of the area, and prior to these ruins we don't have any pictures or diagrams of the operation, and this survey is trying to establish what it might look like, and the layout of the water courses, the water wheels, the rollers, etc.
Shepley Spring Festival hosted the final performance of the second Industrial Folk Traditions Schools project, with performances by groups from High Green Primary, Denby First School and Flockton First School, supported by tutors John Hislop, Bryony Griffith, Julie Powell and John Bowden. The groups performed a series of plays, songs and dances to tell the stories of coal mining and transport in their local areas. Following on from the successful archaeological survey, the programme funded a small community archaeology project on the Silkstone Wagonway. Volunteers from the Roggins Local History Group worked with pupils from Silkstone Primary School and Silkstone Common Junior and Infant School to excavate 2 test pits along the Wagonway. The work was supervised by professional archaeologist Dave Weldrake. The first test pit excavated a former pass-by in Silkstone Village. It was found that the track bed survives in very good condition, with the sleeper stones remaining in situ. The stones were recorded but were not excavated. The second test pit uncovered the foundations of a small building at the junction of the main wagonway and one of the former branch lines. The volunteers recovered a number of iron nails, iron bolts and sections of corroded iron rail, which suggests that the building may have been used as a workshop for making repairs to one or both of the adjacent wagonways. Other finds included clay pipe and pottery fragments, glass bottle fragments and animal bone. In the first trench, one of the school groups also found a ceramic knurr used in the traditional game Knurr and Spell, known locally as miners' golf. Colin Bauer and Jim Ritchie from the Roggins Local History Group tell us more.
Going back a number of years, there were various people interested in the wagonway, but through different aspects, nothing was really done. But the parish council gave the Roggins sort of like a brief to if they could look at some way of improving, preserving the wagonway.
Well, the Wagonway project has been going on from our volunteers' point of view for many, many years. And we've collected information from various sources as we've gone along and taken advice also from various sources. But the coming of the Industrial Heritage at Risk project organised by EPIP actually opened up lots of other opportunities for us. The archaeology that we carried out this last summer, 2013, was an outcome partly an outcome from the survey that was carried out by Ark Heritage, and the work was focused on two particular sites along the wagonway, one of which was identified in the survey as being a building of interest associated with the functioning of the wagonway. That was the supposition, that was the idea. So we wanted to explore that site and find out what the function, what the purpose of that building was, and it was of quite informative in extending our understanding of how the wagonway operated. The second area of interest was the pass-by. The wagonway was a single track route, and pass-bys were essential to the working of the wagonway. And we think it's the only pass-by along the whole route that hasn't been substantially interfered with in the past. So we wanted to see the layout of the stones and the structure of it and how they were positioned, etc. And that was successful. Although the surface had been disturbed, the deeper part of the dig revealed stones still in situ and clearly not disturbed, exactly 1 yard apart, which fitted the cast iron rails that were fixed onto them. Yes, I think that children being involved in a project like this really do begin to get a grasp of the interest that there is, the excitement, the raising of curiosity in their minds of what they see around them, and hopefully also makes them understand the value of heritage in informing us about our past and what's gone on here in the preceding centuries, and perhaps will give them an understanding of their place in a society that's developed from what's gone on in the past. And that has a spin-off, I'm sure, in what the children have taken home and talked about in the family with their parents and their siblings. So it has a spider's web effect. You're spreading a message, I think.
As this film demonstrates, the East Peak Industrial Heritage Support Programme funded a wide range of activities involving a large number of volunteers and community groups. Over a period of 3 years, the programme funded surveys, workshops, performances and public events that have all helped to raise awareness of the East Peak's fascinating and important industrial heritage with great success.
You will have a